I love me some physical media. I may not have a huge collection, but I like collecting the odd thing here and there. A time it was comic books, then Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and now it's video games, and I just love looking back through the games that I've got, the amazing games that I own, and just amazing memories that come rushing back to me when I look at these games. Now, why do I prefer physical media in a world of digital? Well, there's a few reasons. Firstly, I think the market on physical products is usually considerably better than digital in this current generation. PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 2 and earlier is a little bit different now, but for the current gens, you usually get a better price if you go physical. And secondly, I like owning something. I like to be able to hold something tangibly and say, this is mine, and I'm happy that I've got it. I only own around 40 PlayStation 4 games, and that's only a fraction of the actual games that I've owned and I've actually played in the PlayStation. And that's because, although I prefer physical, I'm not going to shy away from a dirty deal. So what I've done is I've picked my top 10 games from my physical collection that I want to go through today with you. As I've already said, a lot of the games I own, I do only own digitally, which means some great games will not be getting mentioned in this list. Those games include Diablo 3 and Remnant from the Ashes, some amazing games. Some of my favourite games I've actually played in the PlayStation 4, but I only own them exclusively digital. So there's going to be some games that will just be absent from this list, not because I don't think they're amazing, just because potentially I don't own them physically. I'm pretty happy with most of the games I own. I would say most of the games I own are pretty good, but I do own the odd game here and there which weren't even close in consideration for this list. Okay, so I know straight away I want to say it's my top 10 physical games. It is, but there's 11 games here because one game doesn't quite make the cut. And I think you're going to be surprised with how I've structured and ordered this top 10 list. So the number 11, my favourite game that I have physical, is actually Uncharted 4. That's right, it didn't quite make the top 10. And the reason why is that when I looked back through this list, the way I was looking at it was, which games I've had the most fun with and which game would I want to replay again today? If I was to start a new trophy list, which games would I want to play again? And Uncharted 4 just wasn't quite there. The trophy list is pretty decent, the game is really good. I just think all these other 10 games just edge it in different ways to make them slightly better for me. Okay, so my number 10 in fact is a remaster. It is the Skyrim Complete Edition. Skyrim is my favourite game of all time, so it could have maybe been higher on this list, but because it's a remaster, I didn't really want to put it there. But you know, it's the most immersive game. It's the game I've played. I've probably got the most memories playing this game over any game in existence. Everyone has that game that they played with growing up, which turned them into hardcore gamers. And I think I played this when I was 16. I was already pretty much on the hardcore route, the hardcore journey, but this just cemented me as a gamer for life. And I know it's funny because, you know, 10, 20 years ago you hear a lot of people who played Resident Evil 1 and 2 on the PlayStation 1, or people who played Pokemon or Mario even earlier, or the Atari, and I feel like the generation I was born in, the millennials, we really were raised in that late 2000s to early 2010s. We were really raised on RPGs from being like 14 to 18. That was when the RPGs were just coming out. Dragon Age Origins, Skyrim, Mass Effect, some amazing games came out which has just made me a hardcore RPG lover, and Skyrim just cemented that through and through for me. Okay, number 9 is the first game I played in PlayStation 4, and it is Infamous Second Son. Even today, it still stands up so well. If you didn't know much about me, I'm a hardcore superhero fan. I love all things superhero, and Infamous Second Son, at a time when there wasn't really any great superhero games other than the Batman franchise, the Arkham franchise, this was the first real open world game which I played as a superhero, and I just loved it. I played them in the past, yes, but on this generation, I just thought it was amazing. Troy Baker puts a pretty good performance in, and there's some really cool superpowers. There's just what's not to love about this game. Honestly, it's one of the best games you can play for a newcomer to the PlayStation 4 console, in my opinion. Okay, number 8 is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. I am a hit and miss Star Wars fan. I grew up on it. I grew up on the prequels as a kid, and you know, the past 5 years they've become very popular. And I do enjoy Star Wars. It's not my favourite franchise. It's probably in the mid tier. I think it's just so hit and miss. There's some good movies, but out of the 10 or 11 films they actually have, they've only got about 4 good films. So to say there's only 4 good films out of 11 kind of will make you understand that I'm not a massive diehard I'm not a diehard Star Wars fan, and I always feel like they always neglect one thing. And I think the only reason why Star Wars is so popular is because, which makes it unique to every other sort of sci-fi world, is lightsabers and Jedis. Like, you know, you've got Battlestar Galactica, you've got Star Trek, all these other worlds which just have everything except Jedis. So I think when you release a game that really focuses on the Jedi combat and you do it well, I think we've seen with Force Unleashed 1. Force Unleashed 2 a little bit, and then now this game, how fun force powers and how fun lightsaber combat can really be. For me, this is the best lightsaber combat we've had. I think it's just absolutely sensational. The combat is fantastic, the story's decent, and I think, but really, you know, you're there for the gameplay, you're there for the lightsabers, you're there for the Jedis, and that game has it all. Okay, so my 7th favourite game on the PlayStation 4 is a game I played very recently, which is Ghost of Tsushima. Don't know if I have time to talk about how much I love about this game, but I think Sucker Punch really just hit it out the park with this one. I think what they've done is they've taken everything successful in an open world game in the life cycle of the PlayStation 4 and just perfected it and released it at the very end. For me, it was probably the best last exclusive to have on the PlayStation 4. I think it's such a perfection. It's a combination of everything from lots of other games just done so well, and I think although it doesn't bring loads new to the table, just what it does, it just brings so much refinement to such a good amount of detail. What I did enjoy was the combat, the force stance system with the samurai. And I just think the world they've built is amazing, the story they've built, the characters, all in all, it's just really good across the board. It's easily, I think all these games are easily 9 out of 10s. I think Ghost of Tsushima might be the first 10 out of 10 on this list. Well, no, Skyrim's a 10 out of 10, but the first PlayStation 4 10 out of 10 game on this list. Okay, so my 6th favourite game on the PlayStation 4 is, in fact, Dragon Quest XI. I've spoken about this game quite a lot over the course of my YouTube time here on this space. You know, I'm not a big JRPG gamer, I'm not, I just haven't really got around to it. And this is the first JRPG I've probably ever played, all the way through, not including Pokemon. And I do love turn-based combat. For me, I think it's really, really fun. I have played games on and off. I remember playing Lord of the Rings, The Third Age on PlayStation 2, which was turn-based. So it was basically a JRPG, and I remember absolutely loving that game as a kid. And I've always been a strategy player. I've always loved playing different types of strategy games. And that's kind of what JRPGs are. They're a lot more strategically based than the traditional RPG, which is just, you know, hack and slash, use and magic. This game has a lot more going on. Lovable characters. It's got a very generic anime story of good versus evil, but I'm a sucker for that stuff. I just love, you know, the fight of good versus evil. With some good characters, a good party. It's just got a bit of everything. It is a bit long. You know, it's going to take you 50 hours just to finish, maybe 60, and then another 40 hours for the platinum. It is quite the grind, but if you like RPGs, you will love this game. Okay, my 5th favourite game, which actually was 4th, but I brought it down, is Bloodborne. Pretty great game. Let's not dispute it. It's the only Soulsborne game I've ever played. I played it this year. I was kind of blown away with how good it is, the mechanics. I love the rogue elements in games. I think that's what I really enjoyed with, and I think let's just bear in mind that the whole leveling up system in Bloodborne from Software isn't actually from Software's own design. They've taken the roguelite elements, and they've ran with it in this hard game system, and I think that is what I love about the game. It's not unique to From Software. I think the parts that are unique to From Software are the enemy design, the combat is all pretty good. The only thing about Bloodborne, I don't quite think it's 10 out of 10. I think it's because it's really confusing and very, like, just lacks clarity and lacks instruction. And I've often said that the reason why I like gaming so much is that it provides clarity and clear goals for us in our very confusing, hazy world where real life doesn't have any goals. I don't want to spend an hour wandering around a forest because I don't know where to go, and I think that's kind of the issue with Bloodborne. You spend like 5-6 hours being lost on your first playthrough, and it's only a 40-hour platinum, so you know, you spend 20% of your time, 15% of your time lost. But other than that, it's just such a rewarding gameplay loop. I love the rogue system, I love the leveling up system. The enemy design is out of this world. Like, if you played From Software, you know that you're going to come into this game and see some amazing bosses, but for someone who hadn't played a From Software game, I just wasn't expecting that amount of creativity in the bosses, and you're left thinking, like, how did someone actually design that? The amount of creativity some people actually have is mind-blowing to me. But yeah, quite a good platinum to have as well. Quite an impressive one, probably the hardest on the list so far. So my 4th favourite game on PlayStation 4 is Mountain Blade Warband, a game most people have never really heard of, and I think this is the kind of game that makes me kind of feel a little bit unique. It's so hard to explain. I literally talked about this on a podcast recently. It's a very hard game to describe kind of what it is. It's kind of like a real-time strategy game where you control the general of an army, and it's happening as you control it. But not only that, it's also like an over-the-top castle open world sort of like current like governing sort of like trading game where you like basically control a warband of soldiers, and you can kind of just go out and do whatever you want. There's no actual story there. You create your own story, you create your own encounters. You can either become a trader, you can become a investor, invest in property, you can become a bandit hunter, you can become a escort, you can become a guard, you can become a freedom fighter, you can create your own kingdom and then fight against the current kingdoms, you can become a vassal and fight in wars between kingdoms. You can become a gladiator. You can do a bit of everything in this game, and it's also very political, so you can sort of side with somebody, and if you side with somebody, everyone else will dislike you, and they'll attack you, and you can sort of leave kingdoms, jump between kingdoms, weaken kingdoms, and then make your own kingdom. It's really complicated, but it's just such a big open game, and it's a PC port, clearly, because there's not a single PlayStation game like this in existence. Really, it's just so unique. Yes, it looks like a PlayStation 2 game. It was made by like a very small team in, I think, Turkey, but I think what they've done with it is exceptional, and there's actually a sequel on PC out at the moment called Bannerlord, which is just builds on this game more and more so. But it's just honestly such a fun game. It doesn't look the best, and I think the combat and stuff's a bit simple, but you don't just play the game for the combat. It's like the gameplay isn't just the fighting. The gameplay is organising your soldiers, make sure you've got the right units to fight the right enemies. If you've got cavalry and you're going against spearmen, you know you're going to struggle. So it's things like that, and it's also like sieges and stuff as well, defending castles. It's just so much going on that it's just a masterpiece. I just haven't played a game like it, and I think the chances are, if you haven't played this, you haven't played a game like this either. Okay, so my third favourite game on the PlayStation 4, this isn't going to be a shock, is Red Dead Redemption 2. What a game. Like, there's not... I can't really think of a negative about this game. It's Rockstar's, in my opinion, best game they've ever made. It just takes... this game... It was so good. It was like 3 discs. Like, for a PlayStation 4 game to have like so many discs just shows how big of a game it was. It looked fantastic. This massive, very, very huge open world, detailed to the absolute pixel. It was absolute perfection. The gameplay was so rewarding, and the story is just such a good redemption story about Arthur Morgan. And I think you can play it, there's a good and a bad ending depending on how you play it as a player, but ultimately it is Arthur's story, and I think there is only one way to actually end the game if you really sort of understand how Arthur is. But if you want to use him as a vessel for yourself to just be creative and just kill loads of people, then you can do that. It just really is such a great game. The Platinum Trophy is disgustingly grindy, as all Rockstar Platinums are, but the game, I'm not talking about games, the best trophy lists here, I'm talking about games that I think are the best games on PlayStation 4. Yeah, Red Dead, I haven't got a great deal to say about it, because if you know about it, you know why it's so good. If you haven't played it, just play it. Okay, so my second favourite game on the PlayStation 4 is SpiderMan. Yes, it could be number 1. It could have been number 1. These top 5 are all pretty much interchangeable at this point. I love Spider-Man so much. He's my guy. It was a dream being realised to play that game in 2018 when it came out. I remember the amount of happiness I felt when I played that game. It was just like, this game just felt so perfect, just felt so much like Spider-Man. I've only ever had that feeling when I played Skyrim and when I played Spider-Man. These games, they're just such beautiful, amazing games to play. Such a good story. Spider-Man in particular had such a good Spider-Man story. You can tell whoever made that knew a lot about the characters, played a lot of respect to Spider-Man, and wrote him in a really the right way, because Spider-Man can be wrote wrong. It's really easy to write him wrong, and I just think they did an absolute masterpiece of representing the actual character. Gameplay fantastic, open world fantastic, web swinging just unrivaled by anything that's ever been done before. 10 out of 10 without a doubt. Okay, so this may not come as a shock to you now. My favourite game on the PlayStation 4 is in fact The Witcher 3. It's the most complete RPG out there, I would say. CD Projekt Red, they took the RPG formula, and again, it's kind of like what Sucker Punch did with Ghost of Tsushima. They sort of released Witcher 3 at the end, in my opinion, of when RPGs were the most popular. I think we've seen a bit of a reduction in RPGs as of late, over the past 5-6 years. There hasn't been that many new ones coming out, and if there have, they've been a little bit shorter, like Outer Worlds. And then we've had games like Assassin's Creed, which have just kind of really changed the RPG landscape. We haven't been getting loads of them that have been AAA anyway. I think CD Projekt Red, they released Witcher 3, they've taken inspiration from like Dragon Age, from Skyrim, from Kingdom Amalur Reckoning, these type of games, and just sort of combined it with the Witcher franchise, and just made pretty much one of the best games, if not the best game of all time, in my opinion. And I think Geralt's such a deep, amazing character, and I think it's because I've read the books now as well. I've read the first couple of books now anyway, that this game is just so held so fondly in my heart now. Yes, we've had a TV series, which I can't wait for season 2. It was great. It was really great. And I think that all of this, just the Witcher actual world is just absolutely fantastic. It's kind of hard to make a unique fantasy world these days, because everything's been done before. The Witcher kind of has been done before. He's just a bounty hunter at the end of the day, but I just love the lore about this world, about the characters, and I love the books, and I think this is a great representation of the books and of what makes an amazing RPG. There you have it, guys. There was me rambling for quite some time about games that I just love, and these are the videos I like to make, where I can just talk to you guys about some amazing games that I've just had such a good time with. Before I end it, some special mentions to games that just didn't quite make the list, but I do think are pretty incredible as well. Shout out to Last of Us Remastered and God of War, both amazing games, but because Last of Us was a remaster and it's not as held deeply in my heart as Skyrim, I didn't want to include it. God of War, it was hard not to include it. I just think, I don't know why I couldn't include it, to be honest. I know you're going to say Fallen Order and Infamous Second Son probably aren't as good. Maybe that's the case, but I love these games for different reasons. I think I loved Jedi Fallen Order so much because I was sick of seeing bad Star Wars IPs and bad Star Wars stories, and just to see Fallen Order come out, it was just so refreshing to my palate to see a good Star Wars game. And then Infamous Second Son was just a superhero game. Guys, I'm always going to pick a superhero game over something that isn't one. Okay, I'd like to thank you so much for watching this video. Do not forget to like and subscribe. Why don't you let me know in the comments down below what is your favourite PlayStation 4 game? I'd be interested to know. If you want to write a top 10, I'd be interested to read that as well, if you have the time. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.